Hello everyone, welcome to BYD Classes and welcome to the fourth session of the Indian Polity Means 365 for UPSC 2023 Means Examination. So let's begin. The issues, challenges and pertaining to the federal structure. And under the federal structure, there is a federalism. What is federalism first? The federalism refers to the constitutionally allocated distribution of powers between two or more levels of government, one at the national level and other at the provincial or state or local level. So this is the federalism, or simply the federalism is the relationship between the union government and the regional government or state or local government. So remember this. And key features of the federalism. Federalism is not mentioned anywhere in the constitution. Only federal structure is given the concept under the constitution but not mentioned anywhere in the constitution. Remember this. Okay. And key features is the consent of both levels, that is union as well as regional levels, is required for a key decision, and financial autonomy of each with designated sources of revenue, that is the distribution of financial resources by the Union Finance Commission or horizontally as well as vertically to union and states. Vertically, that is from union to the state, and horizontally among the state. So remember this. And dual objectives of promoting unity and regional diversity. Two or more tiers of government. Each tier has its own jurisdiction and constitutionally guaranteed existence and authority of each tier. And what are the trends which showcase counterbalancing, strengthening horizontal federalism with advent of ideas like competitive and cooperative federalism, financial devolution reforms, that is increasing the financial space for states and making distribution of resources fairer and more effective, and vital role played by state governments on the ground in managing the COVID-19 crisis and union, understandably ceding adequate space and autonomy and increased federal character due to the creation of Niti Aayog, which replaced the Planning Commission earlier, and the GST Council. Okay. And trends which showcase weakening federalism, rising regionalist demands, the growing regional identities culminating to secessionist tendencies, and growing regional powers may affect foreign policy. Here it is only that the increasing centralization is the crucial role play to rising regionalist demands, and at arbitrariness in misusing of the office of the governor has been a subject of debate, and economic incompatibilities of the state with regard to economic and financial capabilities, and developmental narratives like one nation, one market, one nation, one ration card, and one nation, one grid for the solar power project may undermine the federal principle, and fiscal relations between the union and state. Here the one nation one grid means that the power sector established in the published in India at one nation one grid concept, and governments have undergone significant changes. So remember this. And what are the reforms needed to strengthen the federal structure? there is a need to relook the distribution of powers under the 7th schedule of the Constitution. An effective utilization of federal bridging institutions such as Niti Aayog and the Interstate Council, strengthening the office of governor by implementing the recommendation Sarkaria Commission as well as Punchi Commission, and also given in the second Administrative Reforms Commission, and provisions for a higher devolution to the state and local governments in order to fiscally empower them and gradually move away from one size fits all model towards a flexible model of federalism that allows each state to have its own model of governance, bureaucracy, and local governments. Next is the cooperative federalism. Prime Minister recently underlined the importance of cooperative federalism. What is cooperative federalism? Cooperative federalism is horizontal relationship between union and states and shows neither is above the other. So there is equality with union and states. And cooperative federalism envisages that national and state agencies undertake government functions jointly rather than exclusively. An Indian constitution has incorporated instruments to ensure cooperation between the center and states, and Niti Aayog acts as a platform to promote cooperative federalism in India. And some of the key roles of Niti Aayog include collaborative policy making, center-state dialogue, incentivizing states and monitoring and evaluation. And also Niti Aayog encourages competitive federalism among states. And purpose of Niti Aayog is to strengthen competitive as well as cooperative federalism among states as well as union. And competitive federalism is what? Competitive federalism refers to the vertical relationship between state and central government while states compete among themselves. And what are the challenges to cooperative federalism in India? That increasing centralization of power. For example, during COVID pandemic, Disaster Management Act was used by center to effectively bypass states and assume complete control. And political differences. Central government has been accused of using its power to target opposition ruled states and deny them funds and resources. And interstate disputes. Central government has often been called upon to mediate disputes between states over resources such as water and land and has been criticized for taking sides. And the effect on the unity in diversity. Diverse nature of India necessitates tailored policy making for different regions, further complicating cooperation between central and state governments, and interference in state matters led to lack of autonomy for states. For example, recent controversy over new farm laws which were promulgated in 3 formulas for changing the situation of the farmers that mentioned under the APMC Act and Farmers Contract Bill was taken by the center, which are opposed by the several states, has highlighted the tension between the central government and state government. And constitutional provisions to promote a cooperative federalism in India under 7th schedule, which are mentioned central, state and concurrent list based on the principle of subsidiarity. Okay, principle of subsidiarity concept is especially mentioned for the local government and all India services under Article 312. Integrated judicial system to enforce both states as well as central laws, an interstate council under Article 263 to discuss and investigate the subject of common interest between center and the states, and full faith and credit clause under Article 261 provides that full faith and credit shall be given throughout the territory of India to all the public acts, records and judicial proceedings of the Union and every state. And Zonal Council is an statutory body established under the State Reorganization Act of 1956 to ensure coordination, and Finance Commission under Article 280 for recommending distribution of financial resources between the Union and the states, and GST Council under Article 279 is responsible for deciding rates of GST and modalities of its implementation. So you can read or you can listen this video again for the constitutional provisions to promote cooperative federalism. If you repeat this 2 to 3 times, then you can remember these facts. Okay, so next is the need of cooperative federalism in India. For bridging the socio-economic and infrastructural gaps and effective implementation of central government policies, and facilitates fair and equitable sharing of resources, and it promotes decentralization of power over centralization of the Union, giving more autonomy to states, and tackle issues such as national security, disaster management, etc. in coordinated manners. Okay, and what is the way forward to strengthen cooperative federalism in India? To empowering local bodies such as Panchayati Raj institutions and urban local bodies to take up developmental activities, and increasing the share of states in central taxes to increase the financial resources of states, and to promote fiscal federalism and sharing of best practices among states, especially on contentious issues like land, labor and natural resources, and resolving center-state disputes, which will help in building trust and creating a conducive environment for cooperation and collaboration, promoting para-diplomacy, for example, foreign policy decentralization. And states are often equipped better to undertake diplomatic measures in areas of trade, commerce, FDI, education, ensuring inclusive decision-making processes that involve all stakeholders to promote greater accountability and transparency in governance. Okay, so remember this. And steps taken to foster cooperative and competitive federalism in India. Share of states in central tax revenue has been increased from 32 to 42%, but currently there are 41% because of the abrogation of the state of Jammu and Kashmir and created into 2 union territories, and this after recommendation of 14th Finance Commission. States have freedom to plan their expenditure based on their own priorities, and restructuring of centrally sponsored schemes, financial sector bailout program under Ujjwal Discom Assurance Yojana Uday scheme, the state-wise ease of doing business ranking, and goods and services GST tax. So remember this. Okay, and CBI versus state. What is CBI and why this is in news? Recently, Tamil Nadu withdrew general consent accorded to CBI to probe cases in the state. What aspects of federalism are affected with respect to CBI versus states tussle? State have exclusive power to make laws on police state subject. Police is a state subject. However, Delhi Special Police Establishment Act 1946, which establishes the CBI, continues to function as a central agency carrying out its functions as police. Section 5 and 6 of Delhi Police Establishment Act deal with extension of powers and jurisdiction of special police establishment to other areas and requirement of consent of state government. General consent for CBI. Under Delhi Police Establishment Act, CBI must mandatorily obtain consent of state government concerned before beginning to investigate a crime in a state, and consent of state government can be either case special or case specific or general, and general consent is normally given by states to help CBI in seamless investigation of cases in corruption against central government employees in their states. And in absence of general consent, CBI would have to apply to state government in every case, and before taking even small actions. Several states have currently withdrawn general consent to CBI, such as Tamil Nadu, Punjab, Rajasthan, and West Bengal. An extraterritorial operation consent of CBI is more advanced, involving specialized information, technical knowledge, while incorporating extraterritorial operation. Remember this, okay? And what are the impacts of CBI over the state, or the impact of CBI versus state? This is the politics over federalism, impact the functioning of the state, and impact investigation, because the CBI is impacting in multiple cases within the state and central government. And other recent clashes between center and state, such as the implementation of center-run schemes and goods and services tax, and actions taken by central agencies like Enforcement Directorate and Narcotics Control Bureau. So remember this. And exceptions to general consent, that is Supreme Court and High Courts can order CBI to investigate a crime anywhere in the country without consent of the state. This is the exception, that if central government sends CBI to probe under the state, then state government, with or without permit this CBI to probe a case, and state can prohibit the CBI to probe under the state concerned. And consent does not apply in cases where someone has been caught red-handed taking a bribe. And if the Supreme Court or the High Court orders CBI to investigate a crime anywhere in any state with or without the consent of state, and state cannot prohibit CBI to probe a case. So these are the core difference between the Supreme Court or High Court's order CBI and the central government CBI orders. And why such issues emerge in a case of cooperative federalism in India? Because the concurrent jurisdictions. Bodies like CBI, Narcotics Control Bureau, etc. requires in multi-jurisdictional crimes, yet its concurrence with the local police force and preemptions cause recurrent federal issues and power title to center. It is injurious to the interests of country to provide for a weak central authority which would be incapable of ensuring peace. So remember this. And complexity of Article 131. Over the years, Supreme Court has taken heterogeneous decisions on whether a state can challenge the center under Article 131 or not. For example, under Article 131, Chhattisgarh government challenged National Investigation NIA Act 2008 passed by Center in spite of police being a state subject and nobody to foster coordination and conflict resolution. As Interstate Council Secretariat was set up within Ministry of Home Affairs, it ceased to be an independent body to foster coordination, manage intergovernmental bargaining and conflict resolution. And presently, there is no independent institution to resolve center-state and interstate issues, and centralization of power creating friction. Trust deficit between center and states is widening, and when different political parties form governments at center and state, often their interests don't align. And what are the way forward? Transparency and coordination among center and states. There is need to be transparent about current macroeconomic scenario and revisit revenue projections that offers strategic pathways for consultation with states and committees suggestions under Sarkaria and Punchi Commission, including the ARC report, recommended to cultivate cooperative federalism and suggested actionable steps such as office of governor should be apolitical and terms of his removal should be altered, and extending mandate of ISC beyond advice and recommendations and laying down guidelines to prevent misuse of president's veto of legislation, and it includes states when center enters into any international agreement and giving fiscal space, gradual widening of fiscal capacity of states has to be legally guaranteed without reducing center's share, and electoral reforms at creating a level playing field for regional political parties to facilitate more competitive political contest between national and regional political forces, and specific recommendations for bodies like CBI. Giving statutory recognition to CBI will provide it with constitutional recognition independent of its existence from Delhi Special Police Establishment Act. A comprehensive system involving the cooperative of legislature, executive and judiciary can revamp and revive lost glory of CBI. Next is governor, that is state relations. So this is the static portion. You can read from your notes or any standard book for quick revision. Okay, so here I only recommend the judicial pronouncement or the factual information about the governor with the state relations, that is Bombay case 1994. Under this, the state government's loss of confidence in legislative assembly should be decided on floor of the house, and Article 356 power is meant for exceptional and specific situations, and Rameshwar Prasad case in 2006. Governor cannot shut out post-poll alliances altogether as one of the ways in which a popular government may be formed. Unsubstantiated claims of horse trading or corruption in efforts at government formation cannot be cited as reasons to dissolve assembly. And next is Nabam Rabia case in 2016. Supreme Court held that governor has no discretion in matter of summoning house if chief minister enjoys majority. So remember here in house, majority in the house, and therefore is bound to act on advice of the cabinet. And also in case of governor has reason to believe that the chief minister has lost his majority, a floor test could be ordered. So here you can remember this under Nabam Rabia case. Okay. So here it is a Sarkaria commission that you can remember or read on your own notes. Okay. And Punchi commission, a national commission to review the working of the constitution. And next is the National Capital Territory of Delhi Amendment Ordinance 2023. Recently, central government issued the Government of National Capital Territory of Delhi, that is GNCTAD Ordinance 2023, which seeks to amend GNCTAD Act 1991. Ordinance nullifies the effect of a recent Supreme Court's decision that gave the Delhi government powers over administrative services and excluding public order, police and land. These are three which are not come under the jurisdiction of the Delhi government or in National Capital Territory of Delhi. While quoting Article 239 capital AA, Supreme Court ruled that elected government of NCTD has legislative and executive power over services under entry 41 list 2nd of 7th schedule. You need not remember the entry that list of 7, only you can remember the services under 7th schedule. Okay. Lieutenant Governor is bound by aid and advice of the Council of Ministers of NCTD in relation to matters within legislative scope of NCTD, and with this response the central government overtake the Supreme Court judgment in June 2023. Okay, and new bill was introduced in June 2023 by the Parliament or by the central government in Parliament. Okay, and what is this ordinance all about? The powers to legislate over services. The ordinance specifies that Delhi Legislative Assembly will not have power to legislate on subject of services which comes under a state list. Services include matters related to appointments and transfers of employees of Delhi government and vigilance. National Capital Civil Services Authority creates a new statutory authorities, National Capital Civil Services Authority, to make recommendations to Lieutenant Governor regarding transfer, posting, vigilance and other incidental matters. NCCSA will consist of Chief Ministers of Delhi, who shall be the Chairman of Authority, and Chief Secretary and Principal Secretary of Home Department. So remember these members. All matters required to be decided by NCCSA shall be decided by majority of votes of members present and voting, and central government will appoint both principal secretary and chief secretary. And powers of lieutenant governor. Lieutenant governor will act in his sole discretion. It expands the discretionary role of LG by giving him powers to approve recommendations of authority or return them for the reconsideration. Lieutenant Governor's decision will be final in the case of difference of opinion between Lieutenant Governor and his authority. And present status of Delhi as Union Territory under Article 239 AA inserted by 69th Amendment 1991. This you can remember for prelims examination, and conferred a special status on Delhi on recommendations of L. Balakrishnan Committee. This committee or this article provides that National Capital Territory of Delhi will have an administrator and a legislative assembly. Legislative assembly shall have power to make laws with respect to any of matters in state list or concurrent list except on the subjects of three like police, public order and land, and in case of difference of opinion between LG and his ministers, LG shall refer it to President. Government of National Capital Territory of Delhi Amendment Act 2021. Here the term government in any law made by legislative assembly shall mean lieutenant governor. So here it is changed. Okay, and lieutenant governor's opinion shall be obtained before government takes any executive action based on decisions taken by the cabinet or any individual ministers. A lieutenant governor will not assent to and pass on to the president for consideration any bill which incidentally covers any of matters which falls outside purview of powers conferred on legislative assembly. So remember this. And issues with current setup against privilege of legislature. It is framing rules to conduct its proceedings is thus a part of privilege each house of legislature enjoys, and no accountability of lieutenant governor action. There is no rule shall be made by assembly to conduct inquiries regarding administrative decisions, as executive accountability is a fundamental aspect of constitutional basic structure. And underlining elected government, that is lieutenant governor, who will be the government, is under no obligation to implement any law passed by assembly or carry out directions of the house, as he is not responsible to assembly. Article 239 AB provides for President's rule in Delhi. So remember this, President rule in Delhi, which can impose under Article 239 AB when administration of territory cannot be carried on in accordance with the provisions of Article 239 AA. And President's rule is imposed on a report from Lieutenant Governor. If Lieutenant Governor is the government, will she or he has to make a report against themselves. And against cooperative federalism Act not only negates cooperative federalism but also upturns fundamental principles laid down by Supreme Court in GNCT AD versus Union of India case 2018. And control over services department. Governance has always been a contentious issue since Delhi is not a full state and the services department comes under the lieutenant governor. So remember this. And what is the way forward? A collaborative structure. The Supreme Court had rightly concluded that the scheme set out in Constitution and GNCT D Act 1991 envisages a collaborative structure that can be worked only through constitutional trust and adopting fine mixed balance considering a special status of Delhi and fundamental concerns as Delhi being the national capital and reducing politicization, not politicizing issue as a struggle for power between two political parties as it is undermine representative governance. And clear interpretation of existing laws in larger interest of representative democracy would suffice as has been established. So you can remember this. Okay. And next is the sixth schedule. This also sixth schedule given in the static syllabus. So you can remember this also from your notes as well as from standard books. And why was in news? Sixth schedule provides power to tribal communities to administer tribal areas in Assam, Meghalaya, Tripura and Mizoram under provision of Article 244 Clause 2 and 275 Clause 1 of the Constitution. Okay, so this is given in tribal areas because the unrest of northeastern region in Manipur case. Okay, so you can remember and you can read and write from your notes. Okay, next is the seventh schedule. Seventh schedule is also a static subject, so you can remember this also from your notes or standard books like Lakshmikant. Okay, next is interstate border disputes. So here it will be the crucial, that is interstate border disputes. The reorganization of state of Assam starting from Nagaland in 1963 gave rise to interstate border disputes in northeastern region. And apart from it, some other interstate border disputes also exist in India, either active, like Belgaum district in Maharashtra, Karnataka. Recently, the disputes between these two states over the Belgaum district are dormant, such as Karnataka, Kerala over Kasargod. Okay, so remember this. What are the reasons for interstate border dispute? For political opportunism of using interstate disputes for vote bank politics and British colonial policy to create and recreate boundaries based on administrative convenience or commercial interest, and failure of constitutional mechanisms to address border disputes and threat perception of indigenous people from outsiders migration and complexities of terrain or geographical features like forests, rivers, etc. to properly identify and mark boundaries. Disappointment from zonal councils set up under the States Reorganization Act 1956 and Northeastern Council under Northeastern Council Act 1971. So remember this. What are the effects of interstate border disputes? The lack of growth and development in disputed regions and threat to social harmony in region. And these effects cause human suffering, including displacement, loss of property, and it leads to strained relationship between the states concerned or states involved, rise of secessionist tendencies like the ethnicities among the states or the regions, and groups which pose a threat to internal security. What are the methods to resolve disputes among the states? Judicial redressal. Article 131 of the Constitution gives Supreme Court original jurisdiction over any dispute between Government of India and one or more states, between Government of India and any state or states on one side and one or more other states on the other, and between two or more states. An interstate council. To set up interstate council under Article 263 gives power to President to set up an interstate council for resolution of disputes between the states. Council is envisaged as a forum for discussion between states and center and charged with duty of inquiring into and advising upon disputes which may have arisen between states, and investigating and discussing subjects in which some or all of the states or union and one or more of the states have a common interest, and zonal councils for promoting cooperation and coordination between states, union territories and center. They are only deliberative and advisory bodies. Okay, and what are the way forward? Adopting a give and take approach and not seeing disputes as zero sum games is considered a constructive and positive way to resolve conflicts, and policymakers must understand the core issues of the dispute, and political leaders should spread awareness about benefits of settled and peaceful borders in terms of better infrastructure, connectivity and development. An inclusion of locals would bridge the gap between government and people, thus enhancing communication. Framing proper rehabilitation policy will make dispute resolution process peaceful and help develop trust among people. Resolving interstate border disputes at village level can address genuine grievances and put people's interest first for effective solutions. So remember this. Okay, next is interstate water dispute. This is also a static portion that you can read. The measures to ensure effective governance of interstate river water. National Commission for River Water Commission recommended a comprehensive central legislation to regulate, develop and control all interstate rivers. Develop strong and resilient institutional models for interstate coordination, compliance or collaboration, and incorporating social justice in dispute resolution and interdisciplinary knowledge for devising appropriate river basin management plans to adapt to a changing climate and devising an alternative to political negotiation in the long term and raising public awareness about developmental, economic and environmental losses as a result of dispute. So you can remember the measures to taken about the effective governance of interstate river water. And next is the multilingualism. This was a news that with the centuries of linguistic convergence, multilingualism becomes an important feature of the Indian society. And the Constituent Assembly recognized its role in preserving India's unity in diversity, leading to multilingualism becoming a part of India's constitutional ethos. And the Indian multilingualism features or objective. What are the features or what are the objectives of Indian multilingualism? No national language, only official language as Hindi term of India, and freedom to state legislature on its official language to preserve India's pluralism, linguistic minorities' fundamental right to establish and administer educational institutions of their choice, special directives to facilitate teaching in mother tongue to in order to preserve languages, and right of language conservation for linguistic minorities, etc., to preserve India's cultural wealth of language. So remember this. And government initiatives to strengthen the multilingualism, recognizing 22 languages of India under 8th schedule of the Constitution, and 3 language formula to promote multilingual education. Recently, the formulation was included in National Education Policy 2020, and recognition of classical languages with provisions to protect and develop them, and mission mode efforts Bhashani to increase availability of content in language in Indian languages, efforts from other institutions to promote regional languages, etc., for multiple benefits at economic and political and individual level. And what are the challenges to multilingualism? Monolingual surroundings with reducing linguistic sense, and shortage of human and financial resources to preserve all languages, and problem of stagnation in language and poor intergenerational transfer, and apprehension towards multilingualism policies from some states, and negative influence of globalization with limited digital presence, and stigmatization on the basis of language leading to increased social inequalities and reduced social cohesion. And what are the way forward? A documentation of all languages from state, and overcome apprehensions of states on 3 language formula like for Tamil Nadu with increased funding and manpower development to overcome inefficiencies of education system and make efforts to remove existing linguistic inequalities and focus on development and recognition of local content to promote regional languages and create awareness on linguistic rights to make state accountable. So remember this, okay? And one nation one language formula recently was seen in the news. The Union Home Ministry urged the use of Hindi as the lingua franca rather than English in interstate communication. And what is the facts about the Hindi language? Hindi belongs to the Indo-Aryan branch of the Indo-European family of languages. It is a descendant of Sanskrit, which is an ancient Indian language. And in 1949, Constituent Assembly adopted Hindi along with English as official language of Union of India. In 1950, Constitution of India declared Hindi in Devanagari script as official language of India under Article 343. In 1963, Official Languages Act was passed, which provided that English may still be used along with Hindi for official communication. And at present, English schedule of the Constitution specifies 12 languages, including Hindi. And what are the debates on the issue of one nation, one language? Understanding the relation between language and identity. Language is intrinsically tied to identity, and this often includes the identity of a nation, language, and nationalism. Language stands alongside architecture, flags, and literature as an emblem of nationhood. The relationship between language and nation is a fundamental one, as language is often used in the very creation of nations. A need of one nation, one language for brotherhood spirit, administrative efficiency, and enhance service delivery, saves money and time, okay, and promotes cooperation and economic understanding, and facilitates communication of ideas, values, and beliefs, which results in less misunderstanding among people of different regions and cultures. So remember this. And issues with one nation, one language, because it is not promote in the unity in diversity, and it is the constraint about the federal issue. As per the 2011 census, people in only 12 out of 36 states and union territories had chosen Hindi as first choice for communication. Thus, imposing Hindi as a language is against idea of cooperative federalism and pluralistic society. There is the threaten the pluralistic society while imposing a Hindi language in non-Hindi language states or regions, and secessionist policy. It is ethnically opposition of the Hindi language. Imposition of one language has historically led to division of a country. For instance, imposition of Urdu on East Pakistan was major reason behind creation of Bangladesh as a nation. And economic impact. There is multiple economic impact that it will slow down migration, reduce capital flow, and increase regional imbalances, and threat to minority language. There is a threat to minority language because the multiple communities or multiple ethnic groups are detrimental to this one nation, one language. For instance, in Andaman and Nicobar Islands, Death of Boa, the last speaker of Bo language, has led to extinction of Bo language with the history of 70,000 years. So remember this. And what are the way forward? The three language formula. It was first devised by central government in 1968 and incorporated in national education policy. All state governments should adopt and implement three language formula, that is Hindi, English and other one regional language to bridge the language gap and respect diversity. India is a country of different languages and every language has its own importance. Article 29 states that any class of citizens who have their own specific language, script and culture will have the right to protect it and strengthen local languages to preserve ancient philosophy, culture and memory of freedom struggle. It's important to strengthen local languages simultaneously without being biased towards any one language. So here next will be the parliament. Third section is parliament and state legislatures structure and functioning. We'll discuss in the next or fifth lecture. So here I will end the lecture. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.